A little, but also I believe in ritualizing life, or otherwise.
How long has it been since these clothes have seen the washer?
Oh, once a week.
Okay. I didn't know if there was a behind the scene where you don't wash them or something.
Oh yeah, old Bertel. I know him well.
Sounds like you guys shared a dorm room at one
Old
time.
buddies, yeah.
All right, Brad. Nice to have you on today.
Thanks for having me, Shane.
Where do you come from?
I come from Dayton, Ohio.
Is that where you went to college?
I went to college at Wright State University and earned my Bachelor's of Fine Art degree in sculpture in 2005. Since then, we moved up here, and I started going to grad school at NIU for a little while, and then I dropped out.
Why'd you drop out?
There was a lot of reasons. It was not a good time, for one, but I was going the direction I wanted to be a sculptor, and getting a graduate degree, there's a path towards teaching, and I had realized I didn't really want to teach. I want to sculpt.
And what year was that you came to Sycamore?
We moved up here in 2006.
And then you went to the School of Art and then
It was a couple of years later.
faded out?
Yeah. I was
Okay.
there for about 2 years. Worked under Lee Cito for a while.
I know Lee.
Yeah.
Lee retired. He's in Florida now,
Good for him.
basking in the sun.
Good for him. Yeah, he's good. Our timing was wrong, and that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Life has its ups and downs. You never know.
It does, you know. And at the time, you think that it's the end of the world, but it's not. It's just another chapter.
This too shall pass.
This too shall pass.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I often think about wanting to go back and finish that degree because I don't like to leave things undone. But again, I really have no desire to teach. So that degree just really has no real purpose for me at this point.
From what I've seen on the Facebook, you got some pretty cool sculptures you've already accomplished.
I make a lot of work. Yeah. That's really what I want to do with my life. I want to be a creator.
Okay. So obviously the old cliche of a starving artist, you have to have another job as well on top of being a sculptor, right?
Yeah. Well,
So where else do you work?
I stay at home now. We're homeschooling our children. So
How many kids you got?
we have 3 children, 3 girls. It was a weird transition. I worked for the Altgeld Museum as an installer for a while. I've done a
You know
lot.
Peter Van Ale?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, Pete's a good guy.
yeah. Worked with him a little bit, doing some exhibitions and things. I've worked as an installer at several museums.
Do you know Ari Norris?
No.
He's a sculptor that's working over there at NIU right now.
Oh, okay. I've kind of lost contact.
He's done some pretty incredible sculptures.
Okay.
Real interesting. We'll talk about that later. He's one of those guys I want to get on here.
Sure. So when I was going to grad school, I was also working as an installer, and so when I quit school, I also
Now, an installer, what's that?
you get to
What's that do?
handle all of the work.
So you're behind the scenes doing all the painting and setting everything up,
Correct.
adjusting the lights, and making sure the walls are blemish free.
There's so many things that go into the artwork besides the artwork itself. You have to.
I worked at the School of Art for 17 years as a custodian.
There you go.
So I know all the behind the scenes.
You've probably seen it change.
I've even had students come to me and say, "Hey Shane, I've got this awesome art thing that I'm going to put up in this gallery, and I really want it to shine off of the floor. Can you buff the floor and make sure my artwork shines off of the floor when people walk in? I'm going to have the lighting just so." And I'm like, "Of course I can.
Yeah.
Hell yeah." Students, one thing I learned about being in the art building, and this is a true story, is that you want the art students to be your friend.
Oh yeah.
Because we had a foreman a bunch of years ago in the building services department that tried to tell the art building how to conduct their business and this and that, and how to, treat the students, and different flyers and posters that they'd put on the wall, and she'd tear them all down, and you can't do that. And I told her one day, I says, "Look, you gotta stop messing with the students." So she didn't. Well, these students who have access to a whole lot of bad things for a janitor, they went up and down the stairwell walls with paint and glue, and they went all around the lockers, and they just went crazy all over the building. They came to us as custodians and said, we know that this isn't you that's messing with us, but this is why we did this, is we want your foreman's phone number. And I'm going, oh, stop. Everybody stop right there. No. And I sat the foreman down. I said, look, you see all this vandalism that you made a police report on? It's because of you. Leave them alone.
Yeah,
that's true.
don't upset the creatives.
No. An art student just loves authority.
Yeah, and they're already just their lack of sleep. They've got too much caffeine, and they're probably pissed off. You know,
or they're just overly happy because they are art students.
Sure, no, none that I ever went to school with. No, it's an awful lot of work. You know,
what are some of the projects you've done recently?
I'm in the middle of a really, really fantastic commission. This woman contacted me last year. She had a 1,700-pound block of marble that her brother had bought, and he was going to make a memorial for his mother, and he, for one reason or another, he couldn't. He was a wood sculptor, and so there's a huge difference between carving wood and carving stone, and that seems obvious to me. I don't know if that's obvious to other people. Well, carving is carving. Well, not really. Completely different tools, different methods, and so this rock had been hanging around for a long time, and then sadly he died also. So his sister contacted me and said, I want to make 2 memorials. Can you do it? And, oh yeah, absolutely. It's literally a dream job that someone would call me and ask me to sculpt. Like, that literally never happens.
So you made this a mission for yourself. It was kind of personal, like, yeah, I'm going to do this.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I want to take on all the jobs that I can. I mean, as a professional sculptor, you want to make money and sell work, and sometimes, one's own vision is maybe not enough. You need to get work from other people, and to be able to take photographs and show all the full range of what I can do.
Now, you're a sculptor, but do you do paintings and drawings and things like that?
I'm trained in all of that.
Okay.
My degree in fine art, I'm trained in drawing.
So you could teach art ed?
I could. I don't want to.
Yeah, exactly.
I could. Yeah.
So now you are going to build these pieces. Have you already started on these 2 marble pieces?
One is already finished, and the other a week or 2 away from finishing. Like, I'm into the lettering now.
You're looking at this block of granite.
Marble.
You haven't started yet. Mm-hmm. Is there any rituals that you do before you start a project?
I do have a lot of rituals. Yeah.
I do. Superstitious, aren't you?
A little, but also I believe in ritualizing life. Rituals aren't just for church.
So now would this include Dusty Bob?
Dusty Bob, you've seen Dusty Bob, yeah.
I've done my homework before you got here.
He's part of it. Yep. It's funny. I start my studio day every day with a song by the Fugees called "Nappy Heads," and it's just something that I've been doing since I was an undergrad. I mean, I've been doing this.
So do you get in some yoga beforehand with your?
Get a little bit of breathing. I've got a little bit of
center yourself.
Center myself. Yeah, there's a prayer that Alex Gray, the visionary painter, I recite.
You're not going to levitate on me, are you?
I already am.
Oh, nice.
Can't you tell? So I recite Alex Gray's prayer. I listen to Fugees' Nappy Heads. Light a little incense. Smoke a little herb.
Center yourself.
But there's certain clothes that I wear that I only wear in the studio. There are just certain things that I do that are only for the studio, and or otherwise.
How long has it been since these clothes have seen a washer?
Oh, once a week.
Okay. I didn't know if there was a behind the scene where you don't wash them or something like that.
No, that's a little crazy. That's funny though. Yeah.
Some football players, they won't wash their jock for a whole season.
Right. Right.
They take it off and they stand it up in the locker.
Yeah, like it caught all the magic from that practice. Like, ooh, no thanks. It's enough just to be covered in dust and bring it into the house and things, so yeah. But yeah, when it's work time, and it's really important to ritualize those kind of things, and that's where the Church of Dust came about. I like to think of my studio as kind of a special place. This is where I get to perform my rituals, and those are, my creations.
How many hours a day do you put in your studio?
Anywhere from 8 to 15, depending on what's going on. I mean, when it gets closer to exhibition time, I'm in from 5 in the morning till, 9 at night.
What shows you got coming up?
I'm going to be showing in St. Charles in June, and I'm going to be doing this really cool show in Ann Arbor in July. I'm really looking forward to that. I was in that same show last year. Ann Arbor's a really cool town. Have you been up there?
Mm-mm.
It's really neat. They put on this festival that, I don't know, there's 10,000 artists. It's crazy. It's not really that, but it seems like it. The whole university is just booths and people, they're selling watercolors and bronzes and all kinds of things.
You ever think about doing the chainsaw with the ice? The big block of ice?
No.
Gotta broaden them horizons, man.
Sure,
We're gonna have to try that out next time.
Maybe so. It's funny because stone is entirely on one scale of things. Ice and stone are on like one line, right? Something that's only going to last for a couple of hours to something that'll last possibly for thousands or more years.
Oh yeah.
So somewhere in that. I've carved wax and things. I definitely like to experiment with a lot.
Well, I
of
imagine you
different
had to go
things.
through a lot of different mediums to find what you liked as far as the stone. Now, do you
Definitely.
pour big concrete blocks, like out of concrete, mix it up, and then dump it, and then carve from that, or do you just strictly stone, like glacier stones, marble?
No, I definitely don't. I definitely don't pour concrete and carve it, but I do. There is an additive process that I use with concrete. You can mix concrete with steel wool, and use
Really?
it. Yeah, it's a little difficult to use, but it's a new medium.
Oh.
What I typically show at the art fairs and things, what I actually make money on is stone sculpture. But I try to keep it open. I collect all sorts of roots and sticks and things. I grow a bunch of stuff in my backyard and keep leaves and berries and things. And I like to make little installations and things, small assemblages. I try to keep it fresh.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as going out into the world and presenting my work in order to make a living, it's in stone. Yeah.
Okay.
I carve a lot of limestone. It's a really great material. I decided on that a long time ago because there's a lot of stones that just the rock itself is really pretty, and I find that it was really easy for me to just make not really care about the form itself. Like the rock would be showing most of the beauty. I only had to do a little bit of work on it. That seemed real lazy to me. So I started working with gray limestone because then I had to learn form and shape and balance and, a lot of traditional, what you would consider traditional art form, ideas in art.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I was in Europe a couple years ago, and when I was there, I was in Poland, and everywhere you go in Poland, there's sculptures.
Right.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So we went to all these different parks, and we went to a planetarium where there's this planetarium. It was dedicated to Nicholas Copernicus, who was born in 1473, I believe. And he was one of the mathematicians and astrologists that came up with the mathematical equation of how the sun is at the center of our galaxy, where back then they thought the Earth was the center of the galaxy.
Right, right.
So, obviously anybody back then, he's
Heretic.
scientists become out to be like, voodoo and this
Right.
and that, and they're a little bit outcast, but in time, other people are like, this guy's right.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. Right here's where it was at. That's I had Cam pull these up, pictures
Nice.
from the planetarium.
Yeah, didn't he have to apologize to the church for that just to keep his head?
You could be correct. I'm not
so.
positive.
Yeah.
Can you scroll through those, Cam? That's inside the planetarium. When we went there, we had to go through and drive through this huge forest preserve to get to this planetarium. I'm like, where in the hell are these people taking me? And all
Is it
throughout
up on a mountain or?
Not really. It's in Silesia. It's one of the places there. And all throughout the forest preserve, there's these here sculptures that are just everywhere. And it was real interesting.
Yeah, that looks great. That's awesome.
Because I love sculptures. So I was like in heaven, running around with my camera. Some of them were made out of steel, all welded together. Mm-hmm. Like that there. You ever try that? Welding?
I've learned how to. I'm not interested in doing it for myself because of I have kind of a tactile fetish. I really like the way things feel, and
Okay.
and I want to have my hands.
Oh, now my girl, my fiance, she is a professor at the School of Art.
Okay.
And she also teaches in a school in Opola, which is in Poland. I can't remember the name of the university, but I was at her university, and this is some of the sculpture pieces that were just in the hallway.
That's beautiful.
It's can you go back to that, Cam, please? That is made out of white birch bark.
Right. Yeah. Birch.
All around Poland is just nothing but huge forests
That
of
papery.
Yeah,
that comes
just
off.
beautiful forest all around.
I like to collect things.
So
like
that was the
too,
thrust of
yeah.
this whole conversation. Is that do you get into other countries and other cultures as sculptures and
Absolutely.
what's behind the theory of why they did it?
I get into that. That's when I find a sculptor that I really like. I talk to Polish sculptors, Magdalena Abakanowicz.
Okay.
There's a giant sculpture piece. Collection of sculptures.
This is just like downtown somewhere. Just everywhere you go.
Oh, is that bronze?
Yeah.
Looks like it, yeah. Or copper, maybe. Magdalena has this collection of sculptures in Chicago. There's, I can't remember, 98 figures, and they're in this park, and they're large. They're larger than life, and it's like a forest of people. It's really spectacular. She has a lot of work around Chicago. Her work and her theory really drove me when I was in undergrad, and I still pay a lot of attention to her. She wrote about durable materials. I wish I could remember the quote, and I'm not going to butcher it, but she was talking about the imperishable heaps of human ambitions, and
That's interesting.
yeah, she was making work that was a lot more ephemeral at the time, a little more what I would consider a little more zen, because she was making things that could dissolve. Now later, when she's making these bronzes, obviously that's not going to dissolve. And when you're making public work, you have a certain responsibility that the work is going to live there for quite a while. You know what I mean? So you can't make these ephemeral, you're not going to do a sand painting in the middle of Times Square and expect it to
Stay
survive,
there.
right? Yeah, it's going to get trampled. But I really appreciated that, and it made me really think about, am I just filling my world with stuff, and what is the responsibility to that? Is it important to just make whatever and just litter your whole house with every little sketch, or
Well, I guess there's that fine line of, am I doing this for a paycheck, or am I embracing what I do for the paycheck?
Am I embracing
make
it, or am I just playing around?
Well, I mean, I understand you got to make a living, but you got to love what you do. It helps.
You absolutely. And in this day and age, we have a lot more opportunity to do that. Just not too long ago, there was not a lot of room for a guy to just decide to carve rocks instead. And I was in biology first. I was going to be a scientist. I'm definitely a nature boy.
Gosh, I remember back in high school, I wanted to be a state cop.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, you see, that didn't work out.
That didn't work out at all.
No, I got a job at a slaughterhouse, fell into all the bad seeds over there at the slaughterhouse, and it's an amazing caliber of people that have to work,
Sure.
that it takes to work at a slaughterhouse. So I glommed onto their habits, and here I am.
Yeah, I worked construction for a long time. I poured concrete with the company
okay.
for several years and learned how to build forms and things.
I can see you get done with your little sidewalk. You pull out a paintbrush, whisk your name in it.
Well, it's funny when I first
he puts his Facebook and his website and his phone number. Little free advertisement.
When I was first starting out, I was just taking wheelbarrows full of concrete, just hands. The first time that I got to actually do finish work, I already knew I'm kind of meticulous about things, detail oriented, and I was kind of messing up, and I was trying so hard just to get this one pass to be right.
Did you bring any pictures of your stuff?
Oh, I brought a jump drive for him, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, is that yours?
Yep.
Oh, okay, because I know Cam was looking at a bunch of different stuff earlier this morning.
Yep.
We were going through it, and I didn't know.
Yep.
What was that sculptor that made the Copernicus in front of that? What was his name? We had looked it up earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this guy.
Bertel Thorvaldsen.
Oh, yeah. Old Bertel. I know him well.
Sounds like you guys shared a dorm room at one
We're old
time.
buddies, yeah. He went this way.
Does he snore?
He went the classical route. Doesn't sleep at all, as it turns out. See, I look at work like this, and I love it so much, but I don't. I've never been able to relate to this kind of work. It almost seems too good, and that's it's kind of hard to put my finger on. But a lot of sculptures like this, I'd learned there was a process, and I want to say in the Renaissance, we'll say in the 1400s, there were guilds, and the sculptor was actually the guy that would make the clay model, and he would do all of the measuring and all. It was really fancy, but then he would hand that off to another guild that would turn that clay. They would do a casting of it, so then it would be poured and cast in a durable material like a hydro cal or something like that, high density plaster, and then that was then turned to another guild, the stone cutters. And so those guys, they were more they were laborers. They weren't really considered the artist, and it wasn't until Brancusi took that and turned it on its head, where he was the model maker and the stone cutter. So circling back to a lot of those.
Now he's looking at McDonald's koozies.
Brancusi, Brancusi.
It's amazing where Google will take
There we
you.
go. There we go.
Hey, tell me this then,
Sure.
from a sculptor standpoint.
Uh-huh.
I've never been able to figure it out.
Okay.
What's the story with the big bean in Chicago?
Oh, that's
I've been up to it many times, and I look at it, and it's so seamless.
right. That's,
Is that the goal of that piece? Is it seamless?
Well, I can't speak for Anish Kapoor. He's the artist, but the work, it is seamless, and that is definitely.
I was impressed by that alone.
Right.
I mean, the big bean, okay, that's cool. But then I started looking, I'm like, wow,
I think
that's even more than just cool.
Yeah, the form itself is beautiful, but the choice. See, I'm always telling my kids that every piece of art, every piece of music, every movie, there's a choice for every beat. That was chosen to be highly polished. It's aluminum. I don't remember.
I don't know what it's made out of.
I know. I feel like I should know that, but I know that
You got some
it was.
homework.
I know, right? It's painstakingly polished. That could have been
Well, it withstands all the weather too. Right on the lake shore.
right, exactly. And if you imagine it as just a piece of white marble, how does that change it? If it was, say, clear plastic, how does that change it? He chose to have this highly reflective material because he wanted to bring the rest of the world into it, and also the people, because one of the things that you see, it's one picture after another, people taking selfies in it, and there's sort of like a carnival fun house, there's a weird change of perspective and size with it, but now the person is part of the artwork, and that was a very deliberate choice, and I think that's really interesting.
So now when you're going to school and you're learning all these different techniques and you have different influences, whether it be other sculptors or your professors and this and that, how do you find your own style?
I think that's the trouble every single maker. Every person that starts an art program, they already have what they have developed as a certain style, a certain perspective, a certain thing that they want to do. But the point of going to school is to open your mind and to broaden your perspective. But the very first day, we got into a bit of an argument because I already had a degree and had already been showing. I'd already been doing a lot of things, and I had felt like I'd already been developing a bit of a style. And so when I was introducing him to my work and talking about this and this is my style, and he was like, "You don't have a style." And I was like, "Oh shit." But he's right. I mean, you don't go to school if you already know it.
Okay.
There's nothing to get out of it if you think that you already know it. And now, 10 years later, looking back, I have a little more wisdom about that.
Okay.
So yeah, it's not sour grapes anymore. It was at the time, but it's not.
Well, it's
any
important to
longer.
get over things like that.
It is,
and it's not like he's even around or anything of that nature.
And we learn what we're supposed to. We don't. What's the phrase? You get what you deserve, not what you want. Isn't that? I butchered that too, but
There's a whole bunch of cliches
there's
you
a
can
whole
come up
bunch of
with.
them.
Yeah, we can just come up with them.
Sure. But I mean, with age and with time, you look back at certain situations and where, I was so self-righteously indignant about things that I was actually kind of a dumb kid too.
How old were you at that point?
At that point, let's see, I'm 42 now, so yeah, I was early 30s when I was in grad school and then dropping out, and it just wasn't a good fit because I didn't quite know where I was going.
You can see Cam's clearing out his memory card.
Sure, yeah, that's good. Make room for me.
Well, hey, I tell you what, let's take 5. Let him finish that up.
Sure, absolutely.
And we'll get a cup of coffee.
Okay.
Take 5. All right, and we're back with Bradley Cahill.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome. You got some shows coming up. Tell us about it.
I do. Yeah, my exhibition schedule starts in. I gotta read from my cheat sheet here because I can't remember. In Springfield at the Old Capitol Art Fair. That's May 16th and 17th. I'll be in St. Charles on May 23rd and 24th. And then I'll be in Ann Arbor July 16th through 19th.
How many pieces are you going to take to each show?
I'm working on that right now. I've got about 42 pieces ready to show, but I only have a 10-foot by 10-foot space. So I'm going to pare it down to probably about 26 pieces.
So how do you haul all this stuff? Got a trailer?
Got a trailer.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I pack all of them into wood crates. Again, like you were asking earlier about what goes into showing work, there is a lot that surrounds the work. And when you're putting together an art fair, I just have a booth. But
Now, are these pieces for sale?
oh yeah.
Oh, it's not just an exhibition where you're showing.
No.
These pieces are for sale.
This is for sale.
Do you have any pictures of some of the pieces?
This piece is going with me right now.
What's that piece called?
I call her Aries Rising.
Aries Rising. I'm an Aries.
Are you?
April 11th.
Nice.
Not that I believe in all that stuff, though.
Right. It's fun though. You know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of beautiful imagery that comes from the zodiac. You know. So that's where she comes from.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I've got a tent to put together. I built tables. Yeah, I've got to deal with lighting. I've got to deal with all kinds of stuff. And then, you know, it's 2 or 3 days of talking to a lot of people, which is, I really love that part of it. You know, I spend so many hours in the studio all by myself. You know, I've got a loud compressor. I'm working with a pneumatic hammer and grinders and things. And so, you know, I'm really kind of stuck in my own.
And then you got to protect your ears with
protect your ears, all of
earmuffs and stuff like that.
Yeah, a mask to keep the dust out and everything. And so it's very solitary. So for the 3 months over the summer, maybe 4 months, I go tour around. I did 4 shows last year. 2019 was my first year that I got to fully work as a sculptor. My children, they're homeschooling. We started working more towards online private school. As they're getting older, they have a little more responsibilities that way. So I was able to do more, and now become more of a professional sculptor. You know, this wasn't just a side thing. You know, so now I'm getting out there and I'm learning all the ins and outs of trying to be.
Do you take the family to your shows and your exhibitions?
They don't go with me at the start. They've come up and to visit in the middle of a show. Okay. But you know, I go up a day before because I've got to go to my space and put the whole thing together. And it's easier for me. You know, I've thought about having assistants.
Well, it's probably nice to fly up solo, get set up, get everything taken care of,
Yeah.
and then the family comes up, and it's nice to be surrounded by your family. It gives you that warm feeling of I'm doing this, and
Absolutely.
You know, it gives it that burst of inspiration.
Well, they're entirely supportive, you know.
Absolutely.
But I also want to impress them. You know, they get to see all the struggle.
Well,
but then,
now they see why Dad was out in the garage for 15 hours.
Right. Yeah.
Coming into the house with dusty trails.
Like they understand, you know. And
hey, there's the name of a band, Dusty Trails.
There you go. But it's something I've been working on for. I mean, I started learning how to carve almost 20 years ago, and you know, I've been building this bit by bit. You know, doing whatever I can on the side to make money to buy tools and buy materials and things that. Now all the things have lined up in my life that now I've got enough work. I know what I'm doing.
How many times did you go out and buy a crappy tool and it didn't last? And you went, all right, I'm going to buy the good one this time. And it lasts.
It's so disappointing when that happens. I mean,
know.
In one way, it's really great. You know, I live really close to a Lowe's and Menards. And so if I need sandpaper or whatever, but for... you know, really getting into the work that I do, I've had to buy specialty tools, and yeah, it's you got to agonize over it because, you know, an expensive tool. You know, what if you're wrong? What if you do it wrong and you break it and you just sunk $150 into a piece of steel? You know,
yeah,
that's something you got to really consider.
Well, and if the tool breaks, now I've compromised the sculpture.
There's that too.
Yeah,
again, the right tool for the job. But over these years, I've been able to, you know, collect tools along the way. Yeah, I've been really lucky. I've gotten enough commissions and I've sold enough work along the way that my sculpture business has been self-sustained.
Okay,
know?
It holds its own.
It holds its own, and now I'm in a point where I can actually go further than that. You know, it's. I've stayed relatively local. I've shown all over, you know, many places all over Illinois, all over Ohio. But it's it's something that you have to get out and show weekend after weekend if you really want to make a living doing it. So I'm lucky that things have lined up in my life that, well, my wife and I have crafted it that way. You know, it took many years, but now.
Does your wife, is she into art as well?
She used to paint.
Okay,
She was really good at that when she was in high school, but she didn't think that she could make a living doing it. And she's much more math oriented.
Okay.
She went a totally different direction, and now she finished a PhD in finance, and she teaches and is chair of the finance department at NIU now. You know, she's built up her thing little by little as well, you know, where she is where she wants to be, you know. So it's, you know, it's a work in progress, you know.
So what are your hobbies outside of sculpture?
Hobbies. I like to run. That's good for the mentals. You know, to be honest, I don't really have a whole lot of time for hobbies. I mean, I start my work when I get up, and at the end of the day, we like to watch movies. You know, I like a lot of cinema, but that's a little more relaxation. I don't quite have the time for hobbies just yet. You know, between raising kids and trying to have a business, you know, there's not a whole lot of room for that.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
But I try to diversify my own creative work enough that I don't get bored. And we travel a little bit, and it feels like different jobs anyway, between the studio and then moving to the exhibitions. It really feels like two different jobs. You know?
And it'd probably be real difficult to collaborate with other sculptors too. You know, other people.
I used to collaborate with a couple of mates in Dayton quite well.
Okay.
But, you know, I would imagine it's just like a band. You know, there's chemistry or there's not.
Absolutely.
When I was in grad school, I collaborated with a couple of students to varying degrees of success. It's not easy, and I'm not quite, like, I'm not somebody that can delegate tasks. So I know what I can do. I know what I want to do. I'm open to it if I would have a dialogue with somebody, and if I and somebody else came eye to eye on some idea or whatever, I'm totally open to it. I just haven't quite found the right chemistry in the last several years.
What? Do his art. Oh, you don't want me to talk? Oh, okay. Edit.
Mark.
All right, yeah, put a marker in there.
Yep.
All right, yeah, let's go through your...
Sure, absolutely.
I forgot that time was of the essence.
I know, we're just chatting.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's run through it.
Sure, absolutely. So this is Aries Rising. I carved this twice. The first time I carved it, I was just doing hammer and chisel, so just one stroke at a time. And I had created a number of works, but then after a few years, I was able to afford a pneumatic hammer and compressor, so that increased my productivity exponentially. And so a lot of work I've gone back and looked at that it's just, you know, as you learn more and you gain skills, you know, what I was doing was much better than my older work, and there was still enough rock that I could be able to go back and recarve some of my earlier work. So this is kind of a version 2.0.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What's next? Oh.
Sure, this is called Heavy is the Hand.
Now you've got a whole bunch of these different poses.
Yeah. This is my Business Flies series. I also call it One Lone Drone. I kind of I like to play with words quite a bit. This guy, yeah, he's one of my fly guys, and I made, I think I ended up making a dozen of them last year. When I was starting out, 2019 was my first year that I got to just...
That's cool. You got a bag of money?
This is called Date Night. So it's I've left I've left it ambiguous enough to me because they're flies. These are like kind of bags of trash.
Well, what does another fly date want?
I mean, what else do you need? But I like to keep
Something
it
dead to lay a
ambiguous.
maggot in?
Sure, whatever. It could be whatever it is.
Okay.
Um,
He's got 2 bags.
but he's a business person, so people see it as like a bag of money too. Like, is this a banker or? It can be both because I think about a lot of things, and the art that I make tends to be a little more ambiguous. It's not really about just this one specific thing. I gave you. You can flip through that. There's an article that Resource Bank came over and hung out in the studio.
Is there any of your pieces in town we can see that like a business has bought and put in their storefront or in their front lawn or nothing like that? No? Okay.
I mean, you could come to my studio though. I'd be glad to have you.
Okay. Oh yeah, we'll go on location.
Absolutely.
At one point. Yeah.
Just don't wear your Sunday best.
I just didn't know if there was something around town that they could go and check out.
Sure. I not just yet, but hopefully they'll.
What's
catch
going on with this piece?
This is Cthulhu's Daughter. I have a real fascination, terror of the deep, the ocean, just ever since I was a kid. Yeah, we would always vacation in Florida, and there's something really. I've heard people talk about this, the awe of nature, and how people feel about when they're confronted with the ocean or like with a mountain, something that's much bigger than the human. It's you walk.
The ocean makes you feel small.
It makes you feel like you're nothing because you disappear just like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so fascinating that there's this place that it's part of our world, but we can't really. We have to build machines to be able to just go into it. Crushing weight of the pressure, and then these incredible creatures that grow there. So between my fascination with nature and I really love H.P. Lovecraft and horror writers, and I like to think about hybrids. This is something a term I discovered called therianthrope, which means animal-human hybrid. That's a nice 50-cent word. And that's what she is. She's she's an animal-human hybrid sitting on her throne.
Nice.
Yeah. Let's see. Here's another one of my business flies. He's called Traveling Light, and I don't know if I gave another view of that one. There's some more bags behind him. This is the Judge. I've been thinking a lot about things. The clothes that we wear and the certain accessories of different jobs, and you can tell somebody's job by just one or two details, a suit as opposed to a mechanic's onesie, obviously. They're not called a onesie, right?
You got kids. It's permissible. It's called a jumpsuit.
A jumpsuit, yeah, right. The mechanics, the onesie. We're not wearing onesies.
Race car drivers would be pissed right about now.
Right. It's a uniform. It's special. This is one of my favorites. This is called My Head Weighs 90 Pounds. And as a musician, you might appreciate the phrase comes from a song by Flea.
Okay.
From the soundtrack to the movie The Basketball Diaries. He wrote.
I have not seen that.
Oh, that was a great film. It was a young Leonardo DiCaprio. Leo DiCaprio, Mark Wahlberg's in it, and it's about the life of a poet named Jim Carroll. You might know Jim Carroll's work. He wrote the song called what is it? It's Awesome People That Died. Mm-mm. It was kind of popular on college radio in the 90s.
No.
It was a great film about this really interesting poet. And then Flea wrote this song that, I mean, I was a fan of Chili Peppers, but then Flea's solo work, man, this guy is from another planet. He is amazing. And this one song called I've Been Down, just, it got into me, you know.
Okay,
You
and
know,
that was the inspiration for this piece.
yeah, I mean, that's,
Now, is that piece just sitting on that block, or is it all attached?
it's two pieces.
Okay.
Yeah. Try to give a little bit of illusion, but no, it's pinned on there
Okay.
to try to round out the whole figure.
What do you got next, Cam? Oh, look at this guy.
This is going to be one of my eye catchers. This one's called Sentiment Layers, and there's a second view where you can see its tail. So this one is wearing a onesie, and this has to do.
Yeah, I can see the little flap on the back.
The flaps, there you go. And then that tail is kind of pinned on, and so this has to do with. It's like you've seen like those Russian nesting dolls.
Yes.
Like a thing within a thing within a thing. I think about that a lot. And,
Okay.
And a lot of these figures have to do with that. It's also purposely ambiguous. Like the head is really big, where it could actually be. It could be like a paper mache head, which is things that I make. So is this an animal-human hybrid, or is this just a person wearing a mask and wearing a onesie and with a tail? Yeah, I try to. I like to leave those things open because it is talking about layers, and that's
Mm-hmm.
you know, the layers of the person, layers of reality.
Nice.
Like the onion that we live in.
The onion we can be.
Right. Exactly.
What else you got?
Are these some of the pieces you're trying to sell?
These are pieces that I take with me. Yeah, I created these.
Now, how
and
much would something like this cost?
That one I've asked $1,100.
Okay. How big is it?
He's 26 inches tall.
So it's
He's
about
significant. Yeah, about
A little
that.
more than 2 foot.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. In a picture, you can't really see the actual size. There's not like a pencil next to it where you can see the,
Right. And that's
I like this.
That has consistently been the difficulty for me in representing myself in imagery. You know, sculpture is something that one typically has to see in person, because then sculpture is something that it's an object in space. And so the person comes to it and they will instinctively they'll compare their own body to the piece. And, you know, a piece that is larger than the person will become something that is almost is dominating to the human. And that's something I find really interesting. This comes from a story from South America, from the Popol Vuh, which is the story of the hero twins that come from Mayan culture. It's a two-headed snake.
Interesting.
Yeah. There's actually this was inspired by a piece of jewelry that they found, and it's thousands of years old. I wanted to turn it into a piece of rock. That was also carved twice as well. The initial time
So there's another jewelry piece that looks just like that?
Right.
Or similar to?
Similar to. The form is the same, but it's a nice...
Because you
piece
don't
of
want to copyright.
jade. Right. It is inspired by. Right. There we go. It's a remix, if you will. Oh, and this is called Earnt Offerings. So this one's kind of wearing like a bathrobe and has a bag of offerings, whatever it may be. Maybe a bag of trash. Maybe a bag of money. Yeah. Turn it to the side and see that kind of big booty
That guy's
hanging out.
interesting.
Yeah, this was actually last year. I was doing really badly. 3 shows I zeroed out. And then finally my 4th show, Ann Arbor, saved me and saved my entire year. And this was the first one to sell. This one's called Mr. March. And if you can tell, his cane has a skull. He is what I figure, he's my figure of death.
Oh,
He's
interesting.
He's a gentleman.
He's your Grim Reaper.
He's my Grim Reaper, yeah, but he's a gentleman. He's the guy at the crossroads, you know, and he's just here to walk you home. And actually,
That's the politest way I've ever heard that.
I was so happy. The fellow that bought this, he was talking a lot about magic because his son is a magician in Las Vegas, and for something about it reminded him of his own dealings with magicians over his, and
Really?
artists and things. And he was just like, all right, what do we got to do? I want to take this home. Like, well, here we go, and it
Did you guys have to haggle a price?
no,
No, no, that's what it is.
I'm willing to,
But he didn't.
He didn't. I find that a lot of
And you weren't about to.
I'm not going to offer it. No way. No way. I know how many hours I spent.
Absolutely.
You know.
So how many hours do you have in a piece like this?
That guy, I spent a good probably 65, 70 hours of hand chiseling. This is another Cthulhu's Daughter piece. This is one of the early pieces. When we moved up here, there was a church down the street, and they were taking down these old brick walls that had these beautiful limestone caps on top. These huge 2-foot long, 4-inch thick limestone caps, and there was a whole pile of them sitting there. And I was driving to school every day, and I would see them. And one day I could see the caretaker out there, and so I just stopped by and talked to him. And he was like, well, I was thinking about maybe putting these in the garden. As we're talking, he's like, oh, there's like 17 of them. I'll let you have a couple. And then over the next half an hour, he's like, well, let's just load them in my truck and take them to your house.
Okay.
It was such a windfall for me, because we had just moved up here, and I didn't know where to get material. I didn't know. I had the stock of stone that I had, but I didn't know where I was going to get anything else. And to get it was like a 1/4 ton of rock.
Really?
That he just gave me, and then help bring it over to my house. And so that's really, I kind of started my stone sculpting career with all this beautiful rock from a church. And that was another reason why I call it the Church of Dust.
Oh, okay.
That was part of the seed for that. A lot of the things that I do, it does become self-referential.
Intertwines and comes to full circle.
It's all intertwined. And that was a big part of it. That was such a big thing for me. This is Persephone. Can you see her tattoos?
Yeah.
Carved into the arm.
It's like roses or something, some kind of flower.
Flowers. Mm-hmm. Persephone is a ancient story from the Greeks and Romans. She brings the spring. In fall, she goes and lives in the underworld, and then gets to return in spring. And when she comes back, that's when all the flowers and the bees come back. I was really lucky. I got to sell her in Ann Arbor as well, and leave her there in Michigan. In this beautiful
Do you have a
house.
picture of Dusty Bob?
I didn't bring a picture of Dusty Bob. That's so funny.
We got to start wrapping this up, so let's talk
absolutely.
about Dusty Bob, and then we'll give you one more plug, and we'll call her a day.
Thank you. Yeah, Dusty Bob is. I call him the Loa of my studio. Loa, they're gods in voodoo culture. Dusty Bob is the Loa of my studio, and I talk to him every morning. Good morning, Bob. That's when I listen to the Fugees and have my ritual.
Get your daily rituals.
Yeah, because he sits right there. He's staring at me as I work. Yeah.
Overseeing you.
Overseeing me, yeah, and oversees the Church of Dust. You can find the Church of Dust on Instagram, cult_sculpture. That's what I call my business, but the Church of Dust is the studio. On Facebook, I do have a page for both the Church of Dust and Cult Sculpture, but also Bradley Cahill. I try to show as many of those free platforms as possible. And also cultsculpture.com. I have a full collection of works that I've made, commissions, writings, lists of all of my shows, accomplishments, etc.
Nice. Cam, you got any more questions? Well, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Shane, thank you so much. I really
The
appreciate
515 podcast greets you.
I really
Thanks you
appreciate it.
much, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Cam.
Heck yeah.
Cam's the man.
Cam is the man.
Oh, yeah. Without this, it wouldn't happen. Without him.
We better stop recording.
It's true.
Before we get mushy here.
Wow.
All right.
You're welcome, man. Absolutely.